What do you think?
I think we're dead meat. Real dead meat.
You dead meat!
Go ahead and laugh, you guys. If I ever find a little bastards that did this, they're dead meat.
Thank you, Lauren, for joining me for this conversation. Hot on the heels of Terrifier 3, which so many people have been waiting for to come out, and now it's finally here. Obviously, Terrifier 2 was your big breakout role. So, I mean, I'll ask like a generic, like, what's it feel like having Terrifier 3 come out and continuing the character of Sienna Shaw?
Oh, man, it's the best. No, but really, I'm very, it's surreal. It's surreal that people continue to want to watch a franchise that I'm very fortunate to be a part of. And I don't know if you or Chelsea feel this way, but like, I don't know, just creating as an artist, when I first started, I didn't really think anybody would care about my work. That's not really why I got into it. I think at first it was just like a need I needed to express. And of course it was like, it's always the dream that people will connect and feel like less alone from your work. That's why that's what I really wanted to achieve. So the fact that it's happening, like even in Sitches, there was this little girl who, when I got on the red carpet, she screamed my name. And I immediately went to her. Like I immediately went to her and I signed for her and she started crying. And I hugged her and her mom was like, yeah, Sienna's her favorite character. And she came up to me after the film and she wanted me to sign something again. And she like put her hands out for another hug and I held her so tight. And like I was just that's the dream. And it's moments like that, as much as I love the work, that I'm like, shit, like I really never really thought that a film like this would elicit such a reaction like that. And I'm just humbled and grateful is really, and that's fresh in my mind because that just happened like yesterday or the day before yesterday, the night before. So that's how I feel.
That was at Sitges Film Festival in Spain?
Yep.
Nice. Yeah, because, I mean, we've met at a horror convention that I think you've been to a bunch of, and having that opportunity to talk to the fans and have your work, like you said, validated, it feels so good.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that validation, it's not necessary, but it's definitely useful when, this work is so hard. And sometimes you feel like you're just like throwing stuff into the void and hoping it sticks. And so that all it takes is one person to be like, hey, that meant a lot to me, or that was really funny, thanks for creating that, or just anything, just some sort of validation of they watched it and they cared enough to say something about it is truly like that fuel that invigorates you to kind of keep going.
Yeah, and I imagine it must be extra rewarding for you, because I was just, looking through your IMDb credits, and prior to Terrifier 2, there's so many episode spots on TV series and short films. Like, you were putting in the work of doing all these spots. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't live in LA, right? You're elsewhere?
No, I'm in the East Coast.
So what was that like, having to do that grind in a place where it's not necessarily like the center of the industry? Because like I could go on Actors Access and find 10 projects that I could walk into tonight and do like a student film audition, but I imagine the opportunities are probably not as much elsewhere.
Oh, that's such a good question. Thank you for asking, because especially in the beginning of my career, I lived in Philly, and I don't live in Philly anymore, but I do live closer to New York. However, most of my auditions were in New York, and this was pre-pandemic. Yeah. So self-tapes, even though you got them, not as frequent. So I would have to drive to New York for 2, maybe 3 hours if there's traffic, for a 5 to 10 minute audition. And I'm on the East Coast, so there is humidity. So my hair would frizz, I would sweat. I was covered in sweat because I'm so stressed by New York traffic and trying to get to the place on time. I'm like, come on. So like I'd arrive there hoping that I did a good job, hoping that I could just like all the stress from the ride would melt away. So I would put in the work daily and weekly. So like, even though I only did that for about 2 years before I was cast for Terrifier 2, and then the pandemic hit and then everything kind of shifted into self-taping, which I secretly really love. Like I do miss being in the room. Like that was really cool and like making that connection with casting directors, but I love curating my space and being here, and I can just chill and like just do it. It's hard because you got to like direct your own tapes, you got to edit your own tapes, all those things. You get this, but I really do not miss doing that.
You're like the first actor I've talked to who's like, thank God we're doing more self tapes.
But I think it's because I don't live in LA, and I don't in that like the New York hub, like where everything's happening. I lived hours outside, and I would have to drive. And I think probably even actors who live in LA could relate to this, because I hear traffic out there is insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, that putting in the work for that was really frustrating. And you would try to take little wins. Like when you were in New York, you never know if you're going to actually book something. So you're like, all right, I'll try to treat myself. I'll go out to dinner in New York or something. So you feel like you're spending more money than you're earning, especially in the beginning of your career, because you're spending for like your websites, your Actors Access, like we talked about, like your IMDb, your
Headshots are so expensive, dude. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Thousands of dollars, really.
Yeah.
Like I think like my last professional headshot session before Terrifier was like $2K or something like that. Crazy, but it was in New York that I got it done. But I was like, oh, these will help. It was fine, but it didn't like significantly help my career. Just the amount of money that we put into everything, classes, all of this stuff, just to hopefully book something.
Yeah.
I was lucky to, get episodes and work on short films that did pay. No, they didn't pay a lot, but it was a struggle, like truly a struggle. And I think any actor can relate to that, because it's like, can I just book something? Jesus Christ. But yeah, no, I lucked out to have booked Terrifier so early. I mean, in the scheme of things, pretty early in my career.
What were you doing before Terrifier that supplemented income while you were doing all these drives and auditions and everything?
Oh, I was fired. So it's so many restaurants. I was fired. So many restaurants. Like, because I would be like waiting tables and checking my Actors Access and seeing that I have an audition. I'm like, oh, sorry guys, I gotta go. Because I always put it first.
Yeah.
And like, you can't work here anymore. I'm sorry, you're right. And I also was like an assistant or a secretary, I don't know what you would call me, to an accountant. And I remember like he went behind my back, and I was very friendly with him, went behind my back to start like looking for other people, prospective people. And I got the email of the woman who was like, oh yeah, I'll be in for my interview. And I remember having to like give it to him, like, hey, like, you got this email. And he looked at me, he's like,
Oh.
yeah. Sorry, I meant to tell you. And I'm like, dude, I totally get it. Like, I'm the worst. Like, I'm not reliable at all. And this isn't my passion. So I totally get it. And even this is something I still do. I mean, I haven't done it for a couple months because I've just been incredibly busy, but I taught kickboxing, and I still teach kickboxing. Not that that was very good supplemented income, because I didn't get paid a lot, but I just really enjoyed it. And I really love yelling at people, and they love getting yelled at. Like, it's a beautiful like marriage of like feelings. It works really well. So I could find anything, again, like most actors probably feel this. Oh, and I also did VIP Kid, which I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
VIP Kid?
Yeah, I don't know why I feel like Chelsea would know about this, but it's basically you teach English to Chinese children over Zoom. And I had like a whole setup. Like, it was fun. I actually really enjoyed it. And it's a really good way, if there are any actors out there that need like a at-home job, like, look into it.
Well, we were just talking about languages before this got started. Do you speak any Mandarin or Cantonese or anything? So it was just a one-way conversation?
No, the only requirement is to be a native English speaker. That's it.
Okay.
It's your only requirement for getting this job. Oh, and I think you probably need like a bachelor's degree, and I do. Like, I have a degree in English literature, so
Nice.
it worked well for that. But yeah, I think if you have a degree, you speak English, you could probably do it. If you're an actor, like, try it out. It's pretty good money too. It's just the hours are insane because, China. But
How old were the kids that you were teaching?
oh, they ranged. They ranged from very little, and the parents were always there too, which was great. And these children are so well behaved, because I've taught children my whole life. I've taught children since I was 12 years old in martial arts. And then I taught children English when I was studying in Milan, Italy, and they were terribly spoiled. I hated those kids. But VIP, no, I talk very candidly about this, but VIP Kid, those children were so, and I guess because the parents were like there, but they were so well behaved. They range from like, oh my gosh, I don't know, 5 to teens, like early teens. I didn't really like handle the early teens yet, maybe because I didn't do it for very long. Maybe it's like a progression. I forget what the rules were, but I taught very young, adorable kids that wanted to learn, and I loved it. So yeah, I recommend it.
Okay, well, that makes sense that you have experience, working with kids, because in Terrifier 3, you're acting in a lot of scenes against Antonella Rose. And I
Yeah.
don't know how old she is. I would guess maybe, is she like 13?
Oh my gosh, you know what? She's such like she has such like this I don't want to say sass because sass might be, but she does. Like she has like this attitude of like I know what I'm doing. Like I like she seems like so aware of everything around her that she seems older, but I think she's only 11.
Oh,
Like I
wow.
thought well, she might be 12 by now. I'm not
Sure.
sure. I don't think she's 13, even though she has like this like I know what I'm doing. Like she knows about perfume. Like she's like, oh, you need this perfume and makeup. I'm like, girl, when I was your age, like I didn't know the difference between blush and mascara. Like how are you doing this? And but no, she was so incredible, like truly such a pro. And you would think that she would be because she's a child, like unnerved by what we were filming, but she like I think she worked on Fear the Walking Dead and
Yeah, it
like
looked like it.
yeah, she's like truly a pro, and she is really great at like being in the moment and being emotional when she needed to be. But as soon as like Damien yelled cut, she was a kid again. Like she just, and that's what I loved about her and how her mom was like raising her. Like she didn't stay in that headspace. She just was again like, oh, like let's talk about perfume or something. I don't know. But she really felt like my little like buddy, my little cousin. So I really loved her. She was such a joy and so easy to work with. I can't stop singing her praises.
Yeah, she's a great addition to the cast, and it helps make Terrifier 3 like on that level with Terrifier 2, where it really builds out the world from the first film that was mostly just like an effects showcase. Now you have these more fleshed out characters, and we get longer scenes with them interacting, and there's actually some emotion to it. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Yay, that makes me happy.
Yeah. Also, just because I was looking at your IMDb and Wikipedia, is it true that you were a stunt double in Split for Anya Taylor-Joy, or is that a rumor?
No, I don't know why people think that. Well, I do know why people think that because I was her body double. And there's a difference there. Like I wasn't people have this misconception because I've done martial arts my whole life that I started off in stunts and then moved to acting, which isn't true. I started as an actor who wanted to do their own stunts.
Mm.
And then I got stunt work after that because I guess maybe the rumor really did spiral. So it's not a bad rumor. But no, that was my first like background gig. And I was
So
just
you would be
doing
like
back-
the stand-in?
yeah, but I
Okay.
wasn't originally the stand-in. I just did background. And I remember one day I'm having lunch with my mom because she came with me on set. And I like passed M. Night and like we just like smiled at each other and that was it. And I didn't really think much of it. And my mom's like, does he know you? And I'm like, no, I don't know. I've never met him before. I mean, I'm a fan of his. And she was like, because he looked at you like you were familiar. And I was like, that's interesting. And then the next day I get a call from casting saying, hey, would you like to be the stand-in for Anya Taylor-Joy? So I think we were just like similar in like at the time, probably similar in height, similar in appearance and stuff like that. So I became her body double. If she needed to close a door or like just do something with her hands, that was me. And I also did that for like the other two leads. Like there's a moment where James McAvoy is supposed to like have his knife at the other girl's stomach, and that's my stomach. There's like a close up of my stomach, and it's supposed to be the other girl. But it was such a great experience though, because M. Night, I got to like talk to him, and he could see that I was so enamored by everything that was happening around me that like he'd be behind the monitor and he'd look at me, and I'd be like kind of nervous watching, and he'd be like, come here, and I'd be able to like sit with him and watch the scene play out. And I'm so happy that I had that experience because I love M. Night, and especially we're both from Philly, so like
Oh,
I felt
yeah.
like I had yeah, I
He's
felt like I
Philly
had this
royalty for sure.
exactly. So I felt like I had this like unspoken kinship with him, and he really fueled my love for film, and just the fact that he was so kind and lovely made me feel like, oh, I'm really going to do this. I got to pursue this career. So I started really pursuing it after that.
That's so cool. Did you get your SAG vouchers from doing the stand-in work? the body double work?
I don't think I got it from that. I'm trying to remember. Oh my God, it feels like forever ago, which is 2017, which I think when I actually did, I think, oh God, I don't even remember now. Maybe it was 2018. Time is not real. I don't
Yeah.
understand it.
I did background work too. Like probably in 2014, 15, I was trying to act. I was doing the going to auditions thing. I did not wind up booking as much as you did, but I was definitely always like fingers crossed for like, oh, maybe I can be a stand-in or yeah, body double for one of the actual cast so that I can get like a SAG voucher. It never happened.
I don't remember how I got it. I really don't. But like stand-in or background work is really grueling, isn't it? It's like you feel like a pig in a farm. Like you're just
Yeah.
like,
Just being herded around and like you hope for the days where they're like, oh, actually we only need you guys for a couple hours, but we'll pay you the whole day because we said we would. And you're like, yes, I can go do something else with my time. But
yeah, and it's really like for pennies too. Like
Yeah.
you don't get paid like anything. I mean, it's fine, and I know people that do it as like a full-time job. It's like their full-time gig, and that's a lot of work. That's a lot of commitment for being essentially kettle, and it's cool. Like it's a good way to start, like, and dip your toes into the career. So I'm fortunate for the experience I had trying that out.
Yeah. All right, I want to talk a little bit more about Terrifier 3, so maybe getting into a little bit of spoilery territory. So anyone watching who doesn't want to be spoiled, I mean, here's another reason to go see it, other than the fact that it's going to be everyone talking about it in the horror world. But obviously, I want to start with the stunts, because we've been just talking about it, and there's lots of action scenes in here. You're getting thrown across tables, bashed with hammers, all sorts of things. What were the stunts that you did, and what were the ones where you had like a body double or a stunt double for? Because I know you like to do a lot yourself.
I do, and I always am advocating to do 100% of my own stunts. And most of the time, they're like, "No, you cannot do that because if you get hurt, we are screwed." And I am aware of that. But I did get Jenna Helmuth again. I don't know if you remember. We spoke about her from last time. She was happy. She wanted to come back to be my stunt double, which Drew Leary, who was our fantastic stunt coordinator, told me that. He was like, "Oh yeah, Jenna really loved you. She wanted to come back." And I was like, "What? She wants this torture again?" So actually in the trailer, you see that Sienna gets thrown over the couch into the table. That's not me. That's Jenna. And that was one thing that, like, in Jenna, she always kind of had my back. If I went up to Damien and I was like, "Hey, like, can I do this?" She'd be like, "She can do it. Like, she's capable. Like, she can do it." And Damien would either be like, "All right," or he'd be like, "No, like, no, she needs to be okay. Like, no, you are doing this." And she's like, "All right." So, but she did it, and she was like amazing. She always like never complained. She just got it done, and she was great. So pretty much every time Sienna is thrown over a table, that is her, which is very funny.
It happens a few times, yeah.
And there's also a moment, and we can say spoilers, right?
Yeah.
There's also a moment where Sienna's head gets thrown into a open carcass belly.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I was going to do it, but because it was hung up by a pole, there was like a pole on the inside. They were worried that if they hit my head in, my head would hit the pole. So even though Jenna did it, she was fine. But that wasn't me. That's her, like, struggling.
And that makes sense because, like, yeah, if you hit the head just a little bit too hard, then you have a shiner that you need to cover up in makeup for all the rest of the shoot. And
Exactly. So as much as, like, they knew I could do it, they just didn't want to risk it. But all of the fight work is me. All of the, like, choreography of the fight scene at the end is me. I think that's it. I mean, they probably, like, maybe she did other stuff too, just to have, but I know that in the final edit, it's mainly me. So I probably did like 97% of my own, but like she was always there and ready to help, and she would always like give me tips like, "Hey, why don't you try it like this?" Because she's just incredible. So not only was she my stunt double, she also helped coordinate in ways that would make me look cooler. So she was incredible. Her and Drew and Bobby, who was Dave's stunt double who did arts stuff because Dave didn't really fight me the whole time. Like we had
Oh,
the
really?
face.
Okay.
It was mainly Bobby, and Bobby was incredible. And like I loved working with Bobby. He was just so cool. And it was funny having them both stand side by side because you couldn't really tell the difference. I mean, I could because I know how Dave moves, but if they were just standing still, you would be like, wait, who am I talking to?
So with art, is it easier for them to even take like wide shots and shots where you are kind of seeing his face, but it's not David, it's Bobby?
Oh, pretty much, yeah. Like all of the fight scenes where you don't see his face, like if it's not a close up of just,
Mhm.
doing his facial expressions, it was Bobby. Like me and Bobby did all, I think maybe Dave did, maybe, I can't remember now, do the fight scene with me, like walk through it, but like the actual fight, I'm pretty sure that was Bobby.
And who did the choreography for that? Was that also Drew, the stunt coordinator?
That's true, yeah. Oh my God. He's such a genius. Like, and he's also like a director, like a theater director. So he would also give like acting tips. He'd be like, don't forget this, don't forget. Like, he was just so
That's so
incredible.
helpful, like in such a physical thing like that.
So is because people don't think of that because you're so focused on choreography, you forget sometimes to act. You forget that maybe your body's in pain in one area. And he's like, don't forget, like, you're limping here. So, like, sell that or something like that. Like, he was just, I truly, truly loved Drew. And I hope I work with him again in the future in many different areas of this career because he was just such a joy, so professional and so easy to work with.
Yeah, when it comes to the acting, your character got to do different stuff this time around compared to two. Because I feel like in two, you're mostly like a strong character. You're afraid a lot of the time when you're first encountering art. Here, you get to be like, I guess, more damaged and more. You have like anger outbursts, which I don't think we saw in Sienna in part two. So yeah, what was it like? I mean, did you prepare any differently, or did it feel more comfortable slipping back into the character after having already done her for an entire film?
Yeah, I mean, I think I spoke to you about this before, but for two, I took like extensive notes and journaling about like Sienna and really creating a backstory for her. Like I really wanted there to be a story, even if the film didn't explore it. I wanted to have my own story in my mind of who she was, make those decisions so she felt like a full human to me. But I didn't have to do that for Terrifier 3. Like those decisions were already there, and it felt like putting on like an old jacket, and it was cozy, but it was also worn and a little broken into. So that was interesting. But this time the challenge was because it's not immediately after the events of two. 5 years have passed.
Yeah.
So I had to decide and discuss with Damien, like, how is this affecting her 5 years later? Because you can have a pretty clear idea of how someone would feel immediately after the events. But like 5 years, you have to consider what happened within those 5 years. Like how long, and these were all questions I asked Damien. I'm insane. Like, do you think how often do you think she was in the mental health facilities? How often do you think she came out? Do you think she was in the whole time, or do you think she was like an in and out situation? And these were like sometimes Damien would be like, I don't know. What do you think? Like, and I like, I don't know, man. That's why I'm asking you. So like come up with these things, and I had to decide, like, has she grown in certain areas, or maybe did she regress, or maybe even take on characteristics of her broken mother, which I thought was an interesting take on the character, because I think trauma responses can do that. You kind of revert back to maybe the more I don't want to say abusive, but it's really, for lack of a better term, abusive tendencies of your parents. So that's what I thought when I was approaching Sienna. Like, she had an abusive father towards the end, and her mother was not so much abusive, but she was a bit belligerent.
Yes, for sure.
I think that's why I love her, at least. So I think, like, especially dealing with her brother, she does have these anger outbursts, and it is, I think, reflective of maybe how her parents were at the end of their lives. So that was really fun to explore, because I love the human condition, especially when it's messy. I love a really broken, flawed human. And I love that Final Girls are going in that direction. They no longer need to be this perfect, angelic, like, creature that's virgin and that doesn't do drugs and that's just always right. They're just flawed humans that are really trying to navigate the horrific events that they went through. So I was really excited to do all that work. And it was really interesting work. Aside from reaching out to mental health facilities, watching YouTube videos on PTSD and survivor's guilt and all of that stuff, it was a lot of fun work. I really, really loved that part.
Yeah, it's definitely like a meaty character to dig into, especially with the backstory and the lived experience of the first film. So I can see why that was so fun. It was also probably a lot of fun to act against Jason Patric as your dad in those flashbacks. Or wait, did you wouldn't have? No, you wouldn't have acted against him.
I was there on the day though, because
Okay.
I like came to visit set. I really wanted to meet Luciana, who plays young Sienna, and she was so excited. She was like, "Oh my God, you're me and I'm you." She was so sweet. She actually auditioned for Gabby, and on the day she was like, "Oh, I'm really sad that I didn't get to work with you and like do scenes with you because I really wanted to be your cousin." I'm like, "Dude, you are me. Like we're the same. You're the hero of this story." And she was like, "Yeah, you're right." Like I had to, and she had like a light bulb moment. She's like, "Yeah, you know what? Yeah." So that was really cool. And I mean, Jason, I was sitting next to Damien at Sitches, and like I started tearing up during his scenes because he's so good at this paternal figure. Like when he has that line like when she says, "Thanks, Dad," and he says, "You are very welcome, sweetheart." And I like started tearing up. I'm like, "Oh my God, he's the best dad in the world." But no, I really, and on the day I was so moved by these scenes. Like I was so happy that I came to visit that day. And it's some of my favorite scenes and some of my favorite work of his. I was really moved by his performance, and I'm so happy that Damien got him for this film.
Yeah, to get an actor of that caliber to lend their talent to the film and to take a character who, was mentioned and discussed in the previous film, so you already have these expectations of what they're going to be like, so that's challenging in its own way. And then, knowing the tragic outcome of where that character is going to go, him having to course that plot that course. Yeah, he did great.
Yeah, he really understood the assignment and he delivered. So I was so thrilled to see his work live.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about all these like character actors and other people who are in the film, but like I guess you wouldn't have had scenes with them. So I don't know if you got to like visit the set when Daniel Roebuck and Clint Howard are there, or if you're just mostly confined to the scenes that you're doing.
I am obviously always invited to set if I wanted to. I forget why I couldn't make it to the bar scene. I was invited and I had planned to go, but I think like other work obligations took me away, and I was really sad about that. But I heard wonderful things, and I actually met specifically Danny at a Halloween shop like near me. I think he's from Pennsylvania too, or I forget because he was there too. And I just remember looking at him and thinking like, he looks kind of familiar. And the owner of the shop was like, "Lauren, like, you know Danny, right? Danny Roebuck?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do. Like, what's up, man?" And this was before like I had known that he was working on Terrifier 3. And he was like, "Hey, we're gonna work together." And I was like, are you like manifesting this? Like, what do you mean? Like, we're gonna work? You want us to work together? And he's like, "No, Terrifier 3." And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? And he was like, "Oh, ask Damien." And I was like, "Okay." And that's when I found out that he was going to play Santa Claus. Like I had to DM Damien and be like, "Why is Danny Roebuck saying that I'm going to work with him?" And he's like, "Oh, he's cast as Santa." I'm like, I was so excited. So I do know him. I've met him, and he's phenomenal. He's such a nice human. But I didn't get to work with him. I was really bummed.
Yeah, his scene is one of my favorites. I think he's great as Santa. It's so funny.
So good, but also like I mean, Clint Howard, he's hilarious. Like his little one-liners, like I crack up every single time.
He's like, "My wife's dead."
"I have a chimney. I'll fuck you." Like he's just he's so good. And I met him at a con a few weeks ago. Him and his wife Kat and their daughter, and his wife Kat is like so lovely, and he's just like such a nice human too. So like I was really excited that I finally freaking met him because I didn't get to work with him either.
Yeah, was that bar scene? Do you know? Was it just like shot in one day, or was that more because of the effects?
That's a question not for me. I don't know why. I don't know why I don't think it was just one day.
Okay. I mean, anytime those effects are involved, I feel like it's not going to be one day. But I did want to ask how long the shoot was with you tied to that chair with the crown of thorns and everything. Because I imagine, was that like a whole week?
Yeah, I think it was at least a week. I think it went over. And I remember because Drew, he would always provide ibuprofen for me because I was actually duct taped to the chair.
Oh
So
God.
I actually had issues with that because I'm like, I remember I was discussing with Damien. I'm like, Damien, is there any way that you can like nail my hands and my feet to the ground and nail my hands to the chair? And he loved the idea, but I asked too late. Effects were like, no, we can't do that. Like we just can't. And I'm like, I'm gonna get out of this chair. Like I'm going to get out of it. Like it's going to be too easy for me to get out of it. And he's like, don't worry, Law. Like it'll be fine. Like you'll sell it and it will work. And I'm like, all right, fine. Every time I got out of the duct tape, every single time I
Really?
thrashed, I got out. So I had to ask the art department, I'm like, okay, you're going to really have to duct tape me from my wrist to my elbow multiple times. Like they did multiple layers. And even then, every time I still got out of it. Like I was able to like, I thrashed so hard. I broke the chair. Like I needed to, because I had to sell this moment. Like I couldn't, I didn't want to be restricted. I didn't want to have to work against my body. I wanted it to feel real. But I was struggling with that because I was like, I'm going to get out of this. And I did every time. But it hurt my body a lot. I took a lot of ibuprofen because I was really thrashing in that chair as hard as I could for a week straight.
When was that in the shoot? Was that like towards the end of the shoot, or?
Luckily it was towards
Okay.
the
So you didn't have to live with that for the rest of it.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember. We did do some stuff after that. Like we had to go back like a week later and do some things at a different studio. But yeah, that was towards the end. And we didn't really film chronologically, but yeah, I luckily was almost done filming because my body was hurting after that, like really hurting. I'm not as young as I used to be, but
Was that the most physically taxing part of the shoot, that scene?
I'd say,
Yeah.
I'd say so. I think physically and emotionally, like I really had to like go to some really dark places, and a lot of it isn't in the final cut. Like there's so much of that Damien had to cut because of time, and so much of the finale. I don't even know how long the finale is now, but yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of emotion, a lot of physicality. It was exhausting, but it was my favorite week because I was so ready to just like dive into this finale. I was super excited about it.
Yeah, it's a lot. We get to that scene, and I like paused it to go to the bathroom or something. I saw that like there was still a half hour left, and I was like, oh, that's weird. This feels like the end. And I was like, oh, it's because this is like pretty much a 30-minute scene, and it's all so intense, and there's so much going on. So that's why I imagine it took a long time to shoot, but was probably very rewarding.
Well, I mean, it was rewarding to see. I was just really excited about that last fight, man. I was excited to film it, and I was excited to watch it, and I was not disappointed with either. I was really psyched about that. Again, physical stuff is my favorite to do, and
You're very good at it.
oh, thank you. I appreciate that. But like, there were just so many talented crew members that made that look good. Like from the stunt department to the lighting to Damien to camera. Like and art. The art department was insane.
Not the art, the clown department art.
Right. We know he's his own department, and
Yeah.
but no, like they just like Olga and her team. They just made that feel like Christmas, and it was just so beautiful. And they used like all of these antique like ornaments and lights to the point where they were real glass, and I was barefoot. I don't know if you noticed that, and I got glass lodged into my foot. Yes, on
Like
my last
actually, oh shit.
actually. And Damien and George, who is in their camera department, were trying to get this glass for like a half hour out of my foot. It was a nightmare. I was in so much pain. But so literal blood was shed for this film.
So I know that Damien announced Terrifier 4 is already happening, so obviously we'll see Sienna again. Do you know when you're starting to shoot that? How long of a break you have until that starts, or?
It's not even written yet.
Okay, so you got some time.
It is funny when that was announced, it was at Fantastic Fest. Someone just asked, like, so there's going to be a Terrifier 4? And Damien thought it was a very intimate thing, like he wasn't expecting. So he was just like,
There's no intimacy anymore.
I know. And he was like, we'll do a 4, but like let's focus on 3 right now. And then like that same night, all over Twitter was like, Terrifier 4 is like it's like in the works. And Damien's like, the works? What the fuck? And it was so funny because like we're like, you can't say anything about
Yeah.
it was hilarious.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking your time to talk to me. I really enjoyed Terrifier 3. Like I said, it's another great addition to the franchise, and I think that just your presence in these movies helps elevate them and makes them so good. Like you and David, especially, the performances you guys give are what just make these movies. The gore is incredible, obviously, and it would find its audience due to that no matter what. But I think the reason it's been able to kind of poke its head out at the mainstream, if not fully break out, is because of you and David. So great work.
Thank you so much. That means the world to us. I'm so lucky to be able to collaborate with an artist like Dave and Damien, of course, and really the entire crew. Like they're all such hard workers. So thank you. That really means the world.
Of course. Thank you, Lauren.
Yay!
And go see Terrifier 3.
I'll see it right now.
Right now.
Right now.